alliances, controversies, and power play. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power on WION.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Charna.
And I'm Diksha Bisla, and coming up on the show today, Israel and Lebanon have agreed to implement a US-mediated ceasefire, with both sides also backing the creation of pilot zones that would be placed under the sole control of the Lebanese armed forces. But the deal hinges on one critical condition: a complete halt to attacks by the Iran-backed Hezbollah. But now the question is, will Hezbollah abide by any commitments made in Washington when it was not formally at the negotiating table? We'll break it down for you on the show today. Stay tuned.
Also on the show, the Russia-Ukraine front. After Ukraine strikes deep inside Russian territory, Moscow has once again raised the nuclear warning, saying it is prepared to use all available means if Russia itself comes under threat. At the same time, Kiev has received a major political boost, with the European Union moving Ukraine a step closer to membership after Hungary signaled that it may drop its long-standing opposition to Ukraine's inclusion in the bloc. We'll bring you this and a lot more right here on the show. Let's start with World DNA. Let's start with the headlines.
US House of Representatives approve a resolution calling for withdrawal of American troops from the Iran war. 4 Republicans join Democrats in backing the measure, which passes 215 to 208 and heads to Senate, where it will finally face Trump's veto.
I mean, if it happens, it might not happen, who knows? But if it happens, it could happen like over the weekend.
Donald Trump says negotiations with Iran are progressing well and could produce results over the weekend. Tells reporters a potential deal could be reached quickly if current momentum continues.
He spoke with Hezbollah for the first time ever. We didn't know they spoke. And they agreed. Yesterday, they're not going to shoot. Israel's not going to shoot. We're just going to see. But I'd like to separate it.
US President Donald Trump says he wants to separate negotiations on Lebanon conflict from the talks on the Iran war, despite Tehran insisting that the issues are linked.
Iran says there has been no tangible progress in talks to end the conflict with the US as strikes strain a fragile ceasefire. Foreign Minister of Iran, Abbas Araghchi, warns that an Israeli strike on Beirut could trigger a full-scale resumption of hostilities.
US military strikes a vessel in the Eastern Pacific, killing 2 people. Southern Command says intelligence had confirmed that the vessel was engaged in narco-trafficking operations.
US Secretary of State Marco Rubio warns of a real risk of escalation in the Ukraine war after Ukrainian drones strike St. Petersburg in retaliation for Russian attacks that killed at least 23 people.
China imposes travel ban on a group of New Zealand lawmakers after they visit Taiwan last month. New Zealand's foreign minister says he is surprised by the decision and instructs diplomats to raise the issue with Chinese officials.
Early vote counts show South Korean President Lee Jae-myung's ruling Democratic Party sweeps the majority of seats in local elections, but party looks set to lose crucial Seoul mayoral race amid the controversy over shortage of ballot papers.
We'll be meeting with Minister Goyal, and we're very optimistic. Look, we're 99% there. The last 1% we're working on.
US Ambassador to India says 99% of a bilateral trade deal is complete, with negotiators working on the final details. Ambassador Sergio Gore is set to meet Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal as both sides seek to finalize the agreement despite proposed new US tariffs.
Israel and Lebanon, they've agreed to implement a ceasefire following negotiations in Washington aimed at ending the war that flared up alongside the war in Iran.
Well, according to a joint statement released with the United States, the ceasefire is contingent on a complete cessation of fire from the Iran-backed Hezbollah. The two sides, which do not have formal diplomatic relations, also agreed to create pilot zones in which the Lebanese armed forces will take exclusive control of the territory to the exclusion of all non-state actors.
Well, the statement also said that the two sides have agreed to reconvene for more talks on the 22nd of June with a view towards reaching a comprehensive agreement.
We're no longer going into a pattern of negotiating ceasefires where Israel leaves, Hezbollah comes back, and we go back to the same nonsense. This has stopped. Everybody understands it has to stop. And we are full of hope that this time it will succeed, because we see that the people of Lebanon are committed to freeing their country from this malign influence of Hezbollah and Iran.
Israel and Lebanon had previously agreed to a cessation of hostilities back in April that was then extended in May, but violence continued.
On Wednesday, Israeli strikes killed at least 9 people, including 2 paramedics in southern Lebanon, as the Iran-backed group Hezbollah said that it fired rockets into northern Israel.
US President Donald Trump has expressed his desire to separate talks on the conflict in Lebanon and those on the war with US and Iran.
However, Iran's foreign minister has a different story to tell. Abbas Araghchi has warned that any attack on Beirut would trigger a full-scale resumption of the West Asia war. Araghchi also said that Iran's armed forces are ready to strike Israel if it attacks Beirut. He also said that no tangible progress has been made in negotiations to end the war, and this was in sharp contrast to what Donald Trump said in the Oval Office. The US president told reporters that the deal could happen over the weekend.
I hear the negotiation itself has gone very well, actually. Very well.
Mr. President,
It could happen. I mean, if it happens, and it might not happen, who knows? But if it happens, it could happen like over the weekend.
And for more details, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Let's take a look.
a significant development as Israel and Lebanon agree to a ceasefire, because it marks the first time a concrete step has been taken to end the conflict, and both sides do agree not to a ceasefire but actually implementing it. The Trump administration says this is important because Lebanon had become one of the obstacles in the Iran-U.S. negotiations, and Washington hopes that calming the northern front will allow it to refocus on ending the U.S.-Israel war against Iran. While a final Iran deal is not guaranteed, this is somewhat a confidence-building measure that could create momentum to finally put an end, at least diplomatically, to the conflict between Israel, U.S., and Iran. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Well, 2 days after an Axios report shared details of a tense phone call between U.S. President Donald Trump and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, both leaders have made statements in two separate interviews.
Well, one downplayed the tone of the phone call. The other admitted to being perturbed by his ally. Who said what? Let's break that down for you. In an interview, this was to CNBC, Netanyahu said that he and Trump may have some tactical disagreements but agree overall.
Now, responding to a question on whether Trump called him crazy, the Israeli leader did not answer that specific part. But he did say, and I'm quoting him here, "We are great friends and have a common goal. We can disagree in the morning, and by afternoon, we have a common action."
And let me just add, he did not deny those statements either. And Netanyahu's statement comes after US President Donald Trump confirmed in a separate interview that he did in fact use expletive language in that phone conversation with Netanyahu, while also accusing the Israeli leader of ingratitude.
While answering a question on the tense phone call, Trump said, and I quote, "I was a little bit perturbed at his constantly fighting with Lebanon. I like Bibi a lot and I work well with him."
The Axios report this week had said that Trump, while expressing his immense frustration over what he perceived as a disproportionate military response to Hezbollah's strike, said to Netanyahu, "Everybody hates you. Everybody hates Israel now." Following Ukrainian strikes deep into Russia, Moscow has warned Western nations that it is prepared to use nuclear weapons if the West attempts to invade Russian territory.
But Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov, he said that an attack on Russia's territorial integrity could lead to a nuclear response in the worst-case scenario. He added that Moscow's adversary should not test its resolve to defend itself with all the means at its disposal.
Well, speaking on the sidelines of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, Ryabkov said that Russia would continue its special operation in Ukraine as long as necessary, signaling that the intensified attacks on Ukraine would continue in the coming days.
Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio also warned of a growing escalation risk as the Ukrainian military becomes more adept at striking deep inside Russian territory. Listen to this.
That's been the one dynamic that's changed in the last few months is Ukraine has become increasingly effective at conducting long-range strikes deep into Russia and deep against critical nodes of the Russian economy. And I think one of the things that reminds us of why it's important to try to bring this war to an end if we can, because the risk of escalation is real, more real than it was 2 years ago.
And on the ground, Ukraine continues to hit back, responding to a wave of recent intense strikes by Russia. In the latest, 3 people have been killed and 7 others injured in a Ukrainian strike in Russian-occupied Crimea.
Russia also accused Ukraine of killing 8 civilians and wounding 11 more in a drone attack on a passenger bus in a Russian-controlled part of the Donetsk region in eastern Ukraine. And this is the exact moment when the drone hit passenger bus, leading to a large explosion.
On Wednesday, Ukrainian drones hit an oil complex and military base in St. Petersburg as ministers and officials gathered for a flagship economic forum in the city. Ukrainian President Zelensky called the strikes fair retaliation for Russia's bombardment of Ukraine.
Meanwhile, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas has said that Ukrainian drone strikes inside Russia, they're causing panic for the Kremlin as Moscow responds with increased attacks on Kyiv.
It clearly shows also panic on Russian side. Why they are increasing the terrorist attacks that they're doing in Ukraine is because they don't know what to do with these things. Why they have turned off the internet and all this access to information for the regular Russians is because, you know, otherwise they would also see what is going on. And that is, of course, posing some very serious questions to Putin and its regime.
Furthermore, in a major boost to Ukraine, the EU has agreed to move Ukraine to the next stage in its membership bid, as diplomats said that Hungary signaled that it was dropping its long-standing veto against Kiev. Since Orban's ouster in the month of April, Hungary's new Prime Minister, Peter Magyar, has suggested that he would be happy to move forward on Ukraine's accession.
All right, and moving on, Indonesia has arrested the head of its National Nutrition Agency on corruption charges linked to the country's multi-billion-dollar free meals program.
The program was launched to tackle malnutrition and is one of President Prabowo Subianto's key initiatives. Shortly before the Attorney General's office announced his arrest, Hindayana was seen in handcuffs wearing a red detainee vest. He was escorted into a prison van. He was Dismissed by President Subianto on Tuesday, he has since been replaced by the agency's deputy chief.
Based on the examination and the discovery of sufficient evidence, the investigation team has named DH, Head of the National Nutrition Agency, SS, Deputy Head of the National Nutrition Agency for Operations, and LP, Deputy Head of the National Nutrition Agency for Organizational Development as suspects.
Well, the investigation has also led to the arrest of 2 other senior officials. They include Soni Sonjaya, Deputy Head of the Nutrition Provision Division, and Ludovic Pussing, Deputy Head of Organizational Development and Institutional Relations. Both were removed from their posts on the very same day.
The 3 suspects, DH, SS, and LP, jointly carried out the procurement of goods and services at the National Nutrition Agency unlawfully by intervening in the procurement committee. As a result, procurement reports for goods and services at the agency were not prepared in accordance with actual needs in the field, and price markups were carried out.
Prosecutors allege that foundations operating the program in schools were used to facilitate illegal activities. These foundations were allegedly linked to agency officials and employees. The free meals program is one of President Prabowo's flagship policies. It seeks to provide nutritious meals to nearly 90 million children and pregnant women. But the initiative has faced growing criticism. Concerns have been raised over its high cost, while reports of food poisoning among school children have added to the controversy. Sweden is considering a major shift in how it tackles youth crime, and this comes as the country is battling with rising gang violence.
Well, of course, the violence involving children and teenagers would be the focus here, and according to the officials, gang-related shootings and bombings, they have surged over the past decade, and most of these attacks are carried out by minors. Police estimate that there are around 17,500 active gang members and another 50,000 associates across the country. Authorities say that the criminal networks are increasingly recruiting youngsters through social media.
Last year, 52 children under the age of 15 were involved in legal trials suspected of murder or attempted murder. So we're not talking about theft, not even assault or robbery. We're talking about murder.
In response, the government has proposed lowering the age of criminal responsibility from 15 to 13. Under the plan, young offenders convicted of serious crimes could be sent to specially designed prisons instead of social care facilities. Authorities are already preparing dedicated units for violent teenage offenders, focusing on education, rehabilitation, and structured daily activities.
And one such facility is being prepared at Rosersberg Prison, north of Stockholm, where authorities are rebuilding units to house violent teenage offenders. The prison system says that education will be a central part of daily life. The inmates will also have access to recreational activities such as sports, television, and video games.
So this is the cell where the inmates will be. It's about 10 square meters. You will have a bed, a TV, a desk, and then it will come a chair as well. So you can sit and study by the desk. And then every room has its own toilet. Our main goal is that these juveniles won't reoffend. We don't want them to come back as adults to the prison system.
The proposal comes as crime remains a major political issue ahead of Sweden's September elections. Now, the government argues that previous approaches have failed to curb gang recruitment and repeat offenders among young criminals.
Well, until now, Sweden's most serious juvenile offenders have largely been handled through the social services program. But critics say that the model has produced poor results and many young offenders returning to crime. Sweden Parliament is expected to vote on the proposal on June 15th, with a review planned 5 years later if the law is approved. And our next story is from Japan. The menace of bear attacks is on the rise.
This time, a residential area in Fukushima came under attack, leaving 4 persons injured. Take a look at these visuals. A black bear seen chasing and attacking an employee near the entrance of the Fukushima steelworks factory.
It then ran into a building while being chased by a jeep. Now, It
was chased by a jeep, and as per the police, the bear also attacked a male employee at another company and a woman in her 80s who lived in the neighborhood. While none of them have life-threatening injuries, the bear is yet to be caught. As a precautionary measure, 2 nearby schools have been closed.
The bear is really big. It was walking on the top of the building.
The problem has been compounded as Japan's bear population has reached 57,800. According to Japan's Environment Ministry, 13 people were killed in over 230 attacks by bears in 2025, exceeding the number of fatalities and attacks in any preceding year.
Now, how is the government dealing with this? As part of its plan to manage bear population, the bear control staff will triple to 2,500 within 5 years, whereas the number of bear traps will double. A public awareness campaign has also been launched, urging people to check notifications about bear sightings.
Well, innovation has also come into play here. For instance, a private Japanese company making ferocious-looking robot wolves is being swamped by orders now.
These robots are now being deployed to intimidate bears. They can broadcast more than 50 kinds of recorded sounds, which are audible up to 1 kilometer away.
And the AI boom appears to be entering a new and potentially risky phase.
Now, companies built around AI are attracting valuations so massive that investors are reportedly beginning to ask whether markets creating a major bubble. Well, Anthropic, the company behind the Claude chatbot, it has taken a major step towards a US stock market listing after confidentially filing documents with regulators on Monday. And as per reports, the company could command a valuation of nearly $1 trillion in its initial public offering.
Potentially reaching Wall Street before OpenAI, the creator of ChatGPT, and questions surrounding the AI surge persist across domains. Elon Musk could soon become the world's first trillionaire if targets linked to SpaceX are achieved, with SpaceX expected to pursue a US listing later this month at a reported valuation of $1.8 trillion. But a top research firm, Morningstar, says that the number is simply too high. The American firm has initiated coverage of SpaceX with a value estimate of around $780 billion, and that is less than half of what SpaceX is asking investors to even pay. Now, the firm claims that the shares are likely overvalued at the proposed IPO price and adds that any valuation above $1.5 trillion would make the stock overvalued under almost any near-term scenario. Furthermore, at the $1.8 trillion valuation, SpaceX's price-to-sales ratio exceeds 90 times, far above the industry norm of below 30 times. And these staggering numbers are also raising concerns among experts.
Well, market watchers are drawing parallels with the dot-com era. One of the most famous examples remains the Global Crossing. The telecom company's valuation surged to $47 billion in 1999 during the internet boom, despite never posting an annual profit. It eventually filed for bankruptcy in 2002 after the dot-com bubble burst.
Analysts warned about what they called the impossible maths surrounding some major AI companies. They pointed to the billions being poured into data centers and AI infrastructure, and even questioned whether current business models can generate sufficient returns. Experts say that the big test will come after the major AI companies list publicly, when investors gain a clearer view of their finances and performance.
All right, and before we slip into a very short break on World DNA, here's a quick look at the images drawing our attention from around the world. Stay tuned, you're watching Beyond World this morning.
In West Asia, every move shifts the world's balance. Wars, ceasefires, alliances, power never stands still. From Tehran to Tel Aviv, from Damascus to Doha, the West Asia Post cuts through the chaos to reveal the region that shapes the world. Because what happens in West Asia never stays in West Asia. This is the West Asia Post, the region's story, the world's impact.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime is your front row seat to darkness.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION.
Get the latest updates.
Destroy their
breaking
missiles
news.
And raise their...
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is one.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is one.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with Deeksha. I'm Shivan. Let's start with the headlines.
Kuwait Civil Aviation Authority releases CCTV footage showing the moments of an Iranian drone attack on Kuwait International Airport that left an Indian national dead and 63 people wounded.
Iran's Revolutionary Guards deny responsibility for Kuwait airport attack, claiming that the damage was caused by a malfunction of US Patriot air defense systems after failing to intercept Iranian missiles.
We actually spoke with Hezbollah for the first time ever. We didn't know they spoke. And they agreed. Yesterday, they're not going to shoot. Israel's not going to shoot. We're just going to see. But I'd like to separate it.
US President Donald Trump says he wants to separate negotiations on Lebanon conflict from talks on Iran war, despite Tehran insisting that the issues are linked.
US military strikes a vessel in the Eastern Pacific, killing 2 people. Southern Command says intelligence had confirmed that the vessel was engaged in narco-trafficking operations.
US Secretary of State Marco Rubio warns of a real risk of escalation in Ukraine war after Ukrainian drones strike St. Petersburg in retaliation for Russian attacks that killed at least 23 people.
Meeting between Hamas and Gaza truce mediators in Egypt reportedly postponed until Sunday as the group sought a delay, saying talks are meaningless amid Israeli ongoing attacks in the Palestinian territory.
China imposes travel ban on a group of New Zealand lawmakers after they visit Taiwan last month. New Zealand's foreign minister says he is surprised by the decision and instructs diplomats to raise the issue with Chinese officials.
Early vote counts show South Korean President Lee Jae-myung's ruling Democratic Party sweeps the majority of seats in local elections, but party looks set to lose the crucial Seoul mayoral race amid controversy over shortage of ballot papers.
Brazilian President Lula da Silva has criticized Washington's proposed 25% tariff on many Brazilian imports, saying that the move comes before trade talks were finished. Lula warned Brazil could look at other trading partners if tensions persist. "21 people, including 12 foreign nationals, have been killed in the devastating fire incident at a hotel in New Delhi.
This comes as the Delhi police arrested the owner of the Flourish Stay B&B hotel. Now, the owner has been identified as Lavkesh Bajaj. During an interrogation with the police, Bajaj said that he increased the number of rooms in his hotel to expand his business.
Well, according to the owner, several Indians and foreigners avail medical treatment from renowned hospitals located near the hotel. Bajaj added that the attendance of the patients stay at this hotel owing to the lower rates, which has helped his business flourish. He also said that he had no idea that such an incident could happen.
Reports quoting sources said that 3 partners have been involved in the operation of this hotel. The Delhi police said that these partners own several other hotels and guest houses in the city as well. Police also added that they are probing the aspects related to the hotel's ownership, operations and safety standards.
Well, earlier preliminary probe revealed multiple safety violations, including a single functional exit with failed sensor gates and overcrowding on basement and upper floors, among others.
Well, the fire that broke out on Wednesday morning at the Flourish Stay B&B in Malviya Nagar killed 12 foreign nationals. Total death toll was 21. The deceased nationals hail from countries like Nigeria, Kyrgyzstan, Liberia and Uzbekistan.
Following this, India's Ministry of External Affairs said that they are currently in touch with concerned embassies and they are extending all necessary assistance.
Furthermore, the Delhi Chief Minister's office said that a magisterial probe has been ordered into the incident. In a post on X, the CMO said that an FIR has been registered against the owner of the property.
It also announced a city-wide crackdown would be launched against illegal properties, unauthorized guest houses, and establishments which are operating in violation of fire safety norms and building bylaws.
Shift focus now to Karnataka. DK Shivkumar took oath as the 34th Chief Minister of the state.
And just hours after taking oath, the new Chief Minister announced a series of youth and student-centric welfare schemes. Shivkumar said that his government would focus on initiatives aimed at empowering youth and creating opportunities.
Well, the key announcements include free bus passes to all school and college students. During his maiden cabinet, Shivkumar said that many had questioned why the free transport was limited to girls, which is why this expansion has been announced. He added that students will need to apply for the pass once it is rolled out.
Now, to address unemployment in the state, Chief Minister Shivkumar said that the government will set up a private employment exchange where unemployed people can register for jobs, and he urged people to register with the government to help facilitate job placements, saying authorities will coordinate with companies to create employment opportunities.
Well, DK Shivkumar took charge as the new Karnataka Chief Minister after being sworn in at a ceremony held at the Lok Bhavan. Senior Congress leader G. Parameshwara took oath as the Deputy Chief Minister, while 13 legislators were inducted into the Council of Ministers.
Congress leaders who attended the event included Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha Rahul Gandhi and Leader of Opposition in the Rajya Sabha Mallikarjun Kharge, among others. And in what appears to be a game changer for bladder cancer patients, a drug reportedly could change their lives by sparing them a life-changing surgery.
Let's break it down further for you. As far as bladder cancer is concerned, advanced or aggressive forms are often treated with surgery, which basically involves removing the entire bladder. And what that means is patients need to have alternative ways to pass urine. Now, an immunotherapy drug has reportedly been found to not just destroy bladder cancer, but also prevent it from returning and do away with the need for an operation. A trial led by the Institute of Cancer Research, London, found that adding the drug to chemotherapy and radiotherapy reduced the risk of the disease coming back while avoiding the need for surgery.
Now, results from the study were presented in Chicago at the world's largest cancer conference, the American Society of Clinical Oncology's annual meeting. The drug basically helps the body spot cancer cells hiding from the immune system, allowing it to target and destroy them.
Basically, by adding immunotherapy to chemotherapy and radiotherapy, it could spare the patients the ordeal of having their bladder removed entirely. And these results are reportedly a major breakthrough for people with aggressive bladder cancer, a huge leap towards changing their lives. And at this point, further research will reportedly be needed at a larger scale to know for sure. But these results have the potential to be life-changing for some bladder cancer patients.
A significant shift in global finance is underway. For the first time in modern history, gold has taken US government bonds as the world's #1 reserve asset.
And that is the finding of a new report from the European Central Bank. We decode that seismic shift and more in this next report. Take a look.
Gold now accounts for 27% of all global central bank reserve assets. That is up sharply from 20% just a year ago. US Treasuries, meanwhile, have fallen to 22% of total reserves, down from 25% last year. Euro-denominated assets held steady at 15%. So what is driving this historic switch? Two words: trust and risk. Geopolitical tensions, fears over sanctions, and a growing desire to reduce exposure to dollar-denominated assets have all played a key role. The turning point came in 2022. After Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the US and its allies froze Russian dollar-based reserves. That alarmed governments worldwide. Many began asking how much of their national wealth sat in assets Washington could restrict and how to change that. ECB President Christine Lagarde addressed the trend directly. She noted, and I quote, "Geopolitical tensions continue to drive strong central bank demand for gold," unquote. The ECB also linked much of the change to gold's dramatic price rally. Bullion prices rose around 60% in 2025 alone. Central bank buying eased to 850 tons in 2025 after 3 consecutive years of net purchases above 1,000 tons. Key buyers included China, Poland, Turkey and India. In a surprising twist, the ECB identified stablecoin issuer Tether as the single largest gold buyer in 2025, acquiring more than 100 tons. A crypto company is now outbuying the world's major central banks in gold. Tether purchased 6.5 tons of gold in March quarter this year, bringing its total holdings to a record 132 tons. Over the last 6 quarters, Tether bought roughly 73 tons, nearly 50% more than China's central bank. In September quarter last year, Tether was the single largest gold buyer globally, bigger than any central bank. Why? Tether buys gold to diversify reserves, build resilience and back its stablecoin. With projected profits of $15 billion in 2025, analysts say Tether could add 50 to 60 tons per year without affecting operations. The new gold king isn't a country, it's stablecoin. Still, despite gold's rise, dollar-denominated assets overall still command the largest share of global reserves at 42%. The dollar remains dominant, but gold's ascent sends a clear message. The world is hedging its bets against the dollar. Business Bureau, WION World is One.
Data breaches are taking place with alarming frequency around the world.
And cybersecurity experts warn that it is no longer a question of if your personal information will be exposed, but when. The good news is that a few simple changes to your phone and online accounts can significantly improve your digital security. Here are some steps that you can take to better protect yourself online. Take a look.
Let's start with the biggest weak spot, passwords. If you're reusing the same one across sites, one breach hands a crook the keys to everything. Don't use your birth date, your parents' birth date, their anniversary, your dog's birth date. All of these are easy to guess. And no, putting an exclamation mark at the end doesn't make it any safer. The fix is a password manager. With a password manager, the only password you have to remember is one, whether it's your Google password or whether it's your Apple ID, whereas a password manager creates really long, complicated alphanumeric keys for the sites that you visit. These are practically unguessable unless you're using Claude Mythos or something. Jokes apart, a password manager will also tell you when it detects that any of your passwords have been revealed in any data breach on the dark web, which is a real advantage because you can go ahead and then change them. Step 2. Turn on two-factor authentication, especially for your email, your bank, and your social accounts. That's the code or tap that stops a thief even if they do have your password. And skip text message codes when you can. An authenticator app or a passkey is far safer. Passkeys are the ones that everyone should pay some attention to. I mean, you don't even need a password. You just use your face or your biometrics, your fingerprint, to sign in, to log in, to unlock. It's not infallible, but it's certainly better than a weak password. Step 3. Audit what your apps can see. Most people have flashlight apps and games quietly holding the keys to their location, microphone, and contacts. Go down the list and pull back anything that doesn't need it. A weather app needs your location. A photo editor probably doesn't need your microphone. Finally, make sure automatic updates are switched on. Those updates are mostly security patches, and confirm that your phone locks with a strong passcode. Enable the Find My function so you can wipe it remotely if it's ever lost. Enabling two-factor authentication, using a password manager, and auditing what permissions each app on your phone has. 3 simple steps that make you a much harder target. Do it today.
In other news, the global craze for underwater sports is exploding as enthusiasts trade traditional fields for the deep end.
First underwater chess to hockey, from high-energy team games to graceful artistic disciplines, the new craze has the potential to become the next big thing in sports. And these are the visuals from Dubai. At the bottom of a swimming pool, players in masks, snorkels and fins, they are pushing a puck with short sticks while surfacing every few seconds for air. The sport is underwater hockey, a fast-growing niche activity in the UAE that combines swimming, breath holding and teamwork all at once.
Similarly, in Poland, a few days back, the 2026 World Diving Chess Championship took place. Chess wizards up the ante in diving chess as they hold their breath and play a match at the bottom of the pool.
The UAE is a melting pot of just loads of nationalities. So the trickiest thing is everyone's got such a busy life, is just getting everyone together on 1 or 2 nights of the week. Honestly, the challenge is finding your core group and using those who cement the team.
1, 2, 3, 4.
What do I love most about it is being underwater. I love a breath hold. It gives me something to do while I'm underwater. It's a different element, it's something new, it's something outside of the ordinary.
And new legends will be made at the 2026 World Cup. There is a certain aura associated with the most revered jersey in football, the number 10.
Well, the greatest players in football history have worn it, and the World Cup has provided them with the biggest stage. Let's take a look at some of the best players who have donned the iconic number 10 jersey. The original GOAT of football, Pelé, wore the number 10 shirt for Brazil, and his jersey became as iconic as the team itself. And arguably, the late Pelé is the single most important reason for the jersey's iconic status. But interestingly, Pelé randomly got assigned the number 10 shirt at the 1958 World Cup when Brazil accidentally forgot to submit their jersey numbers. And the rest is history.
Now, when you say Pelé, the next name that automatically comes to mind is Diego Maradona. His 1986 campaign in Mexico is widely regarded as the most dominant individual tournament performance in modern sports history. The infamous hand of God and the goal of the century, they were both scored while he captained Argentina during the 1986 World Cup winning campaign.
Now, another footballing great that has immortalized the shirt was Francis Zidane. In 1998, Zidane Delivered when it mattered, with the weight and expectation of the host nation, he came up with the goods against Brazil in the final to land France their first World Cup title. 8 years later, in 2006, he put on a masterclass in his final tournament, though his career ended with the headbutt incident.
And finally, we have Lionel Messi. The Argentine fulfilled his destiny 4 years ago by guiding his country to a third World Cup title. Messi settled the debate with Ronaldo by winning the World Cup and will once again take the pitch for Argentina in what will be a record 6th World Cup appearance. Now, for the first time in history, there will be 48 number 10s at the World Cup.
And Aditya Dhar's espionage epic, Dhurandhar 2 The Revenge, makes its highly anticipated digital debut today.
Since March 2026, the Ranveer Singh starrer hasn't just broken box office records, it has actively rewired how Indian blockbusters are even made, marketed and consumed globally. For decades, the standard Indian cinematic hero was an unblemished paragon of virtue. Dhurandhar 2 violently dismantles that trope completely. Ranveer Singh's portrayal of an undercover operative deeply embedded in Karachi's criminal underworld showcases a protagonist who sacrifices his own humanity to achieve his mission to dismantle Pakistan's terror network. Fans witness several moments when the hero essentially becomes a monster. Like its predecessor, Dhurandhar 2 was banned across all Gulf Cooperation Council countries, GCC, due to its geopolitical narrative. But the ban only fueled the fire. Ironically, a film focused on taking down Pakistani crime syndicates became a viral talking point within Pakistan itself.
Dhurandhar 2 also cements a radical new business model. Well, shot back-to-back over an intense production schedule, the creators opted for a remarkable short gap between the two releases, instead of making audiences wait 3 to 4 years for a sequel. And this strategy hijacked the cultural conversation, keeping the conversation fresh in the people's mind. The short window ensured that the hype from the first installment rolled seamlessly into the second.
Well, Aditya Dhar's strategy was a masterclass in audience retention that rival studios are now scrambling to adopt. The movie, which was built on a combined budget of roughly $30 million with a duology, has earned a whopping $360 million.
Now, what makes this milestone significant is that it was achieved without pandering to Western storytelling templates. Dhurandhar tells India's version of the story. The franchise is deeply rooted in national trauma, local geopolitics, and cultural ethos. The $360 million gross provides that it proves that hyper-local, emotionally charged Indian narratives, they possess immense global commercial power. As Dhurandhar 2 The Revenge begins streaming today, it stands as more than just an action thriller. It is a blueprint for the future of modern Indian blockbuster.
All right, viewers, that's a wrap on this edition of World DNA. Before we slip into a short break, here are climate stories making headlines across the world. Stay with us. This is WION World as One.